How's everybody doing, and welcome back to my channel for a brand new video. So today I'm going to be walking you through Azucena's stances and how to use them. This is going to be really important moving forward because of the balance update and changes that Azucena will be getting soon. She's still a good character, however using her stances and getting creative will be key when it comes to playing her the way that she was intended to be played. Azucena is still good and her stances are no different, so we're getting a head start on this. We're going to have to get creative with her, and honestly, it's going to be interesting. She has two stances. One is called Libertador or Liberator, and the other is Backturn stance. Liberator looks like that. Backturn stance is this. We're going to cover both of them in this guide, how to use each stance, the options out of stance, and what makes Azucena dangerous when she goes into her stances. So let's start with Liberator stance. This move can be done manually by pressing forward 3+4, just like so. Now, when in this stance, Azucena can actually move around. She can move backwards, forwards, and side to side, right? Just like so. And this is actually really unique because a lot of characters, when they go into stance, they're pretty much stationary, but Azucena actually has movement. While in Liberator stance, Azucena has access to a crazy amount of strong moves. And we're going to cover them here, so let's go ahead and get started with the first one, and that is Liberator 1-2. This attack right here. This is a high attack that is natural on hit, just like so. And at the wall, it actually gets you a wall splat. However, its true power comes when Azucena is in heat for the following reason. When heat is activated, if you do Azucena's Liberator 1-2 and you hold forward, look what happens. Azucena jumps and does a spin towards your opponent. When Azucena has heat activated and she does Liberator 1-2 and you hold forward, it still leaves her at a big advantage even if your opponent blocks it. So let me demonstrate, right? So activate heat, go into the move, and as you can see, she has a massive advantage at +7. What this means is that Azucena can effectively continue to take her turn and even loop consecutive Liberator 1-2s. This is definitely useful for keeping pressure on your opponent. Now, one thing I do want to mention is that Liberator 1-2 is a high, right? So what this means is that your opponent can actually duck the second hit if the first hit is blocked. So let me demonstrate, right? I'm going to go into stance, I'm going to do Liberator 1-2. And as you can see, the opponent is able to duck it. And of course, if they duck it, she can launch you. So what do you do against an opponent who is ducking Liberator 1-2? Well, this is where Liberator 2 comes in. So the move looks like this, right? Liberator 2 is a mid attack that is safe on block, and as an added bonus, this move is also a heat engager on hit. So if your opponent is consecutively ducking Liberator 1-2, what do? Mix it up. Go for Liberator 1 and then throw out a 2, just like that. And then you can officially get a hit, go into heat, and continue your pressure. And if you already have heat activated and you land Liberator 2, you get a full combo, just like so. So definitely use Liberator 1-2, but also keep just the single 2 in mind and use those in combination and mix them up with each other. Next up on the list, we have Liberator 1+2. This is a huge launcher. It's high risk, high reward. Liberator 1+2 is -14 on block, so you are going to be punished if it does get blocked, right? And some characters can punish this better than others. Some can actually launch you, so definitely keep this in mind when you use Liberator 1+2. Liberator 1+2 can actually be cancelled by holding back, and it makes Azucena go into Backturn stance. Just like so. We're going to cover Backturn stance later in this guide, so definitely stay tuned for that. Next up on the list is Liberator 3. This is a safe low poke and it leaves Azucena in Backturn stance. Again, more on Backturn stance later. Liberator 4. This is a kick. It is a mid poke with good range. As you can see, it reaches pretty far and it leaves you an advantage on hit. Liberator 4 also has extensions. She has Liberator 1-4, just like that. This is a natural combo, and on counter hit, it becomes a launcher, just like so. Liberator 4-1 is also hit confirmable, so if you can visually see that the first hit connects on counter hit, you can follow it up with the extension, just like so. there's also an additional extension, and that's Liberator 4-1-2. Liberator 4-1-2 is a mid-high mid-string, and it's going to be your go-to combo filler. Liberator 4-1-2 still has its use out in the open, so don't be afraid to throw this out every now and then. And on block, it's really not that bad either. It's only -10, so even if you get punished, it's not going to be too bad of a punish. You know, just a 10 frame move is what you're going to be dealing with. Now, one thing I do want to point out about this string is that it is mid-high, and of course that means that the opponent can duck and punish the second hit. So you see the first hit is mid, I go for the follow-up, it's a high, and Lily was able to duck it. But of course, there's also a way around this, and that's where Liberator 4-2 comes in. This is what the move looks like. Liberator 4-2 is a mid attack. So let's say that the opponent knows they can duck the 4-1. That's when you hit him with the 4-2. Because it's a mid attack, it's going to spike the opponent down to the ground. As I mentioned, Liberator 4-2 is a mid that spikes your opponent to the ground. So what this means is that if you get it in a combo on a floor break stage, you're going to go downstairs. Just like so. Next up, we have Liberator down 4-4. This is Azucena's Hell Sweep. It is a natural combo for 32 damage. Not only that, but Liberator down 4-4 is good to use at the wall, because if you're near a balcony break, it's going to break it. And also down 4-4 at a Liberator is also a wall-bound move, so definitely keep this in mind. Good to know, because it's going to give you a lot of damage. The downside of this move is that on block it is launch punishable, so if you do get this move blocked, you're going to get launched for a full combo. However, it is still a good move to use, but just be aware of the fact that it is launch punishable. Up next, we have Liberator 3+4. This is a mid attack. It's also homing, which means that you can't step it. Your opponent won't be able to sidestep this. And on top of that, it's also an armor move. And on top of that, on hit, you can get a free follow-up by doing either down back 1+2 or forward 4-3. Also from Liberator stance, Azucena can do her command throw, which is up forward 1+2. Something good to know and keep in mind, you always want to keep your opponent guessing and maximize your options out of her stance. Now, the most notable thing about this stance is that once Azucena is in Liberator stance, she can actually auto parry high attacks, and she can auto parry low attacks as well. If you parry a high attack, be ready to punish, and your safest bet to do is to use Liberator 2. After a parry, Liberator 2 for a punish, activate heat. Another option you have is to punish with Liberator 1+2 for a big launcher. Just like so. When Azucena parries low attacks, they are automatically countered, so you don't have to worry about punishing yourself. In heat, if Azucena parries a high or low attack, you get a free hit automatically. So here's going to be what it looks like when she parries high. You get a mid attack for a knockdown. Let's do it again. Oh, heat ran out, so let's try that again. Alright, so activate heat. Look at that. However, the best thing about this is that if you auto parry a low attack in heat, Azucena gets a full launcher. Just like so. Now that we know about Azucena's Liberator stance, let's move on to Backturn stance. Backturn stance can be manually entered by pressing back 3+4, just like so. Or, you can enter Backturn stance by doing certain moves that transition into that, such as down back 3 or Liberator 3. By far the most common move you'll be using for Backturn stance, to go into that stance I should say, is down back 3. So keep that in mind, and moving forward in this guide, I think we're going to assume that you are in Backturn stance after successfully doing a down back 3. So now that we're in Backturn stance, what can we do? There's actually a lot that Azucena can do, and it's pretty sick, so let me show you. First up on the list is Backturn 1-2. This is a high attack, and at the wall, it gives you a wall splat. So we're at the wall now, and actually, hey, I'm glad that happened because it also gives you a balcony break. Backturn 1-2 can also be cancelled into Liberator stance by holding forward. By cancelling Backturn 1-2 into Liberator stance, this can actually catch opponents who might be wanting to mash a high string. However, when you cancel this string, you're actually at a huge disadvantage. So if your opponent reads you correctly, you'll probably eat a launcher, just like that. Back turn 1-2 is a high string, so the opponent can duck and punish you. However, this is covered by the next move on the list, which is back turn 1-4. As you can see, this string is a high mid, so if your opponent is trying to duck the back turn 1-2, you can throw back turn 1-4 out there to catch him ducking. The second hit of back turn 1-4 also has counter hit properties. So if you catch your opponent ducking and trying to punish, anticipating the high, look what happens. You can get a full combo for a lot of damage. So it's always a good idea to mix up back turn 1-2 and back turn 1-4 for this reason. Next up on the list is back turn 2, which is a mid attack. And on hit, if you just mash 2 repeatedly, this actually turns into a command throw of sorts for 38 damage. So not too bad. Next up on the list, we have back turn 1+2. This is a mid attack. And on counter hit, you get a full combo from this. For example, a simple way to set this up is that if you hit down back 3, right? So if you hit this first and go into back turn stance, and then you follow up with the 1+2, you can get a counter hit, right? If your opponent tries to retaliate, you're still at the advantage and you could get a full combo, just like so. Back turn 3. This is probably her best move out of back turn stance. It's my personal favorite and for good reason. The damage output of back turn 3 is actually pretty beefy at 23 damage. On hit, you automatically go into Liberator stance, which allows you to continue your pressure. But perhaps the best part about this move is that it actually has counter hit properties as well. On regular hit, this is what back turn 3 looks like. Take note of how the opponent Lily reacts. Alright, so back turn 3 on regular hit. With counter hit, the animation changes. And I want you to learn how to recognize this, because if you ever land this on counter hit, Azucena has some pretty beefy follow-ups. So once again, look at the animation, learn how to recognize that. Alright, you see how she practically falls to the floor and gets back up? That's counter hit. Now, on counter hit from back turn 3, you can actually get Azucena's crouching throw. Just like that. And if you're not already in heat, Azucena will go into heat. Now let's say Azucena is already in heat and you get a counter hit back turn 3. This is where things get crazy, because you can actually press 2 at a Liberator and go into a full combo. Look at that. So let me show you again, alright? So let's activate heat. You have counter hit properties available. Back turn 3, Liberator 2, hold forward, go into a full combo for massive damage. So as you can see, back turn 3 is a great move, and on block it's not too bad either. It's -13, which means that the majority of the roster will not be able to launch you. There are exceptions, but for the most part, the first thing applies. Next up is back turn 4-3. This is a 2-hit string that is mid-mid. It knocks down on hit, and on block you're at a disadvantage of 14. So you're -14. So perhaps try to check your opponent only with the first kick, because the back turn 4 by itself isn't punishable. Also, before I forget, back turn 4-3 actually has tornado properties if done during a combo. Keep this in mind, as it'll be useful to apply in combination with the next move, which is back turn 3+4. This is a mid attack, and it's also a launcher out of back turn. This attack is also able to avoid many attacks, specifically lows. Now remember back turn 4-3, we just talked about it. So if you land Azucena's back turn 4, the launcher, you can do the following. You can do back turn 4-4-3, right? So let me show you in action, all right? So we're in back turn stance, 3+4, back turn 4-4-3 for a tornado, and then you can get a full combo from there. In back turn stance, Azucena can also do her throws. Movement in back turn stance. The cool thing about Azucena's back turn stance is that she can move and actually defend in some capacity and actually make her, quote, safe under specific situations. So here's what I mean. When you're in back turn, you can actually press back 1+2 to run away from the opponent. This is a nice tactic because while doing this, she can actually parry mid attacks and proceed to punish the opponent. Just like that, you see that? This tactic requires good timing, but it's still a useful tool. However, there are counters to this that your opponent can do. The parry cannot evade lows and highs, so you'll still get hit by those moves. On top of that, if your opponent has a good read on you, they can simply follow you and do a back turn throw, or even get a launch, so just be aware of that. Also in back turn stance, Azucena can actually sidestep by pressing back 3 or back 4. Back 3 will sidestep to the left, back 4 will sidestep to the right. So let's say I do down back 3 and go into back turn stance. Watch what I can do, alright? So down back 3, sidestep left, I avoid loose, down forward 1. Let's try that again, right? Also from back turn stance, Azucena can do back 3 plus 4. This is another evasive tool that Azucena has. I've been able to avoid certain high attacks with this move, so it can be useful in certain situations. However, I do think this is overshadowed by the other tools from Backturn that Azucena has, but it's always good to keep this in mind just in case. And finally, we have Azucena's Backturn forward 3. All this does is simply put Azucena back into Liberator stance by jumping towards the opponent. To be honest, this can actually be used as somewhat of a mind game with your opponent in a real match, because trust me, if you get enough pressure and momentum going, you can actually freak out your opponent by just doing this. I've done this. And sometimes you'll be doing this, jumping around, and Azucena goes into Liberator stance, and if your opponent panics and throws out a high or a low, you get the auto parry. And there you have it, a guide on how to use Azucena stances in Tekken 8. It's definitely worth learning this in practice mode and trying to do whatever you can to apply it in certain situations in a real match, because you'll get a lot of mileage out of this. Azucena definitely shines when she's in stance. She's a very strong character overall, so make sure to be using as many of her tools as possible. Other than that, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what y'all thought. Other than that, I hope you guys have a good day. Stay safe out there, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.